I am an ethical person. I believe there is a right and a wrong way to do things, and the choice is usually clear. Yet, as much as we would like to believe that this is a fact and this is how we live, life brings us challenges in the choices that aren't so clear, whether it is yours or someone else's. A thin zone where we live with our own version of ethics, as grey as the Mithi river that sails to the sea. This was brought home to me during my stint as a community medicine doctor at Lokmanya Tilak Hospital in Sion. This hospital is right in the hub of the city, bound by Asia's biggest slum, Dharavi, on two sides, Bombay's biggest port of entry, the Eastern Express Highway, on the third, and the old, spacious, glamorous King Circle and Matunga residences on the fourth. This brought us all types of patients, right from an unwanted acne scar to an unwanted 2-truck 4-car pileup. A glamorous title of Senior Resident in Community Health and Epidemiology brought with it numerous roles to play. That of a wailing wall, a superhero with a strong stomach, even stronger hearing, and an ogre torturing babies and old indiscriminately, with needles, of course. 2 work days of the week were a picnic, literally, otherwise known as community outreach program. On those 2 days, we would pack a basket of 500 syringes, 300 bottles of vaccine, 200 iron supplement tablets, countless deworming medications, some oral polio drop bottles, and we would set off. 2 doctors, 1 nurse, gaggle of interns squeezed into this rickety Tata Sumo for a long 2-hour dusty, noisy drive through the suburbs to reach USA. Over there, we were given a chance to stretch our legs, climb over a high ridge just off the highway, trek through piles of rubbish for 15 minutes, then jump over a few open wastewater drains to reach our destination. Let's call it Ganesh Nagar. It was a cramped mix of structures, some pakka with brickwork, some just bamboo and frame matting tacked to it. In a city that's constantly under development, parts like Ganesh Nagar have long been ignored and left untouched by any development program. We usually camped at the 2-room local school. There we would be given a rousing welcome by long queues of mothers bringing assorted kids with ages between fetuses and 15-year-olds. We would quickly disperse our wares, set up lines for vaccination, antenatal care, contagious diseases, children's diseases, and get to work. And so it went till we ran out of medication. Since we were also representing an NGO, our scope of work went beyond just dispensing medicine and treatment. Our social workers reported a lack of municipal water supply to certain areas, turning out to be a big problem. The women would have to carry water for about 1 kilometer. In the ever-changing weather of Mumbai, this was not a pleasant task. Limit on the amount of water they could carry and store, therefore dictated its use. And a bath every day, maybe 4 or lower on the list. This had the children especially affected, with scabies and diarrhea and all the consequences which had them queuing up to us. We had been providing medicines for about 6 months to the children of that area without any discernible change in the spread of infections. Since I was also in charge of the budget of the program, this was proving to be a huge drain. I decided to tackle this a little differently. I decided we would appeal for a water supply pipe to be laid down in the worst hit areas. According to my sources, the person to appeal to was the zonal sanitation officer, in charge of the area which had a population exceeding 120,000. And thus it began. We filled out mountains of paperwork, and I begged and pleaded with various involved parties to contribute in any way, money, effort, time. I drew up pretty graphs and demonstrated the understanding of nuances of PowerPoint to anybody I could find in authority. I even threw tantrums with loud sobbing and tears and passionate appeals to the goodness of their hearts, the budget committee of the NGO. Managed to requisition some money for this funding to fund the Watts connection. After all the appropriate procedures were followed and the request with its pile of paperwork, completed to the last dotted I and the cross T, we put it in a big brown envelope and submitted it to the officer. And we waited. And we waited. And we waited some more. A week, fortnight, a month went by. In spite of repeated appeals and visits to the zonal office and numerous written pleas and reminders, nothing budged. As is typical. It reminded me of an Asterix comic I had read, trudging up and down stairs in never-ending cycles of being referred to this department and that just to get one permission form signed. Unfortunately, I did not have an Obelix or a Getafix to help me out. I did the best I could and deployed the network of social workers I had to find out how else we could tackle this. After some fact-finding, they reported to me that the sanitation officer was known to require greasing of his wheels to implement any project. Now, this was a dilemma for me. I could not requisition more money from the NGO, especially personal contributions that could not be accounted. After much head scratching and thinking out of the box, at the social worker's behest, I decided to approach a so-called respected man in Ganesh Nagar. He was a self-styled social activist, which is a polite way of covering up his anti-social activities. The ones involving guns and big knives. In other words, the local big brother, Dada. Now, brought up in Bombay and Amitabh Bachchan movies, I immediately pictured this mean, menacing, always drunk, unkempt man who carried around a big knife and was surrounded by rowdies similarly drunk. I mentally psyched myself to appear as dignified and fearless as the actress Rakhi is when she faces up to the villain. We set out to his house one summer day, a gang of 3. Myself, a senior nurse with a starched armor of a sari that did not wilt even in the midday sun, and the pretty zealous young social worker who had suggested this conversation. We navigated the various dingy alleys to the very back of Ganesh Nagar. His house was a last house in a dark, overcrowded alley, adjoining a shallow chasm which had a huge open wastewater drain bubbling its way slowly into the marsh seen in the far distance. We could hear the hum of circling mosquitoes in the sleepy afternoon heat. It was the only house that had a window and actually had some natural light streaming a little way into the alleyway near its door. The doorway, sans a door, was guarded by a tacky lace and bead handmade curtain that tinkled softly in the barely felt breeze. And this huge 6-foot bearded, intense-eyed youth, for want of a better word. After one glance at the gun holster strapped on his shoulder, I was scared enough not to look beyond his knees, so I don't know if he was muscled or not. After a furious glance at the social worker, I muttered, "Aap Miyan ji hain," to his knees. When there was a couple of seconds of silence, I took a deep breath and dared to look up and saw this giant sporting a big grin. He caught my eye and replied in the gentlest voice I've heard in a mail, "Nahi, मैं रमीज हूँ, मियाँ जी का assistant." No, I'm Ramiz, Miya ji's assistant. I took another deep breath. I wished to meet Miya ji. I am the doctor who gives the children injections. And quickly looked at his knees again. I could hear the amusement in Ramiz's voice. Miyaji doesn't need an injection. I blushed and replied, I had important work with Miyaji and asked whether I could meet him, please. Ramiz moved aside the lace and bead curtain and stepped inside, leaving us, the three of us, looking at each other. After a couple of minutes, he stepped out and held the curtain away as an invitation to enter. We trooped in behind one another silently and found ourselves standing in front of an old, well-padded, red velvet sofa on which sat a middle-aged woman with a dupatta on her head, feeding a 4-year-old kid who looked at us wide-eyed. From the inner door, I could catch a glimpse of an old man kneeling. Thinking Ramiz had probably misunderstood and wanted us to vaccinate the child, I again asked again, a little more confidently, since Ramiz was not in the room. Can I speak to Miyaji, please? In reply, the lady hollered towards the inner door. Dr. Sahiba ko Miyaji se kaam hai. A young voice replied from within. Namaz padh rahe hain, abhi aa jayenge. It presented a scene directly from a normal, content household, a far cry from the drunken orgy I was expecting. I was still pondering over this conundrum when a beautiful young woman stepped out from the inner door, bearing a tray with 3 glasses of sharbat. She set it down and tickled the child playfully. We stood around looking at each other for about 5 minutes, occasionally shuffling our feet and scratching our noses. The older lady continued to feed the child and the younger one popped back in. We finally heard slippers slapping the tiled floor in the inner room, and a man entered the room. He was a spare man, mid-60s maybe, hardly more than 5'6", but with an upright bearing. White beard up to his kurta collar, twinkling eyes, head covered with a skull cap and prayer beads in his hands. He looked benign, like someone's avuncular uncle. Not wanting to do any more guesswork, I introduced myself more loudly and confidently than before. मैं डॉक्टर साहिबा, मुझे मियाँ जी से मिलना है, उनसे बहुत ज़रूरी काम है. I am the doctor. I have very important work with Miyaji ji. He politely replied, जी, फरमाइए. He was Miyaji ji himself. I stood there stuttering incoherent apologies and mortification. He laughed it off and very warmly invited us to sit down and in the same breath scolded both his wives for not allowing us to do so before. He offered us the sharbat and asked his younger wife to get us some sweets, which he politely declined, but said to eating once presented. We put the water tap matter to him, and also the fact that we could not pay a bribe, or pay Miyaji either for his help. He listened to us attentively, even once calling Ramiz inside for more information on the sanitation officer. After about half an hour of allowing us to talk incessantly, rant against the system, cry over the waste of time and effort so far, he held up his hand in silence. In that one moment, I realized the power of this man. We all just shut up right then. He said, Dr. Sahiba, मैं आपके काम की बड़ी इज्जत करता हूँ. आपके काम में हाथ बढ़ाने में मेरी जो भी मदद चाहिए वो मेरी खुशनसीबी होगी. In that blinding second, I realized the source of this man's power. He had an uncanny understanding of human beings and their motivations. Whether he used his power for good or evil, moral or immoral ends, legal or illegal things to do, it's beyond my judgment or understanding. He told us he would deal with the sanitation officer, but we were not to ask him what he had done or relay the fact to any authority that we had approached him for help. Leave it all to me, he said. Go home in peace. It will be done in a fortnight. Such was the man's manner of assurance, and such was our desperation to get that water line going, that I agreed and left it to him to get the pipe laid. The pipe was laid down in 2 days, and the water started within a week. The access to water, I'm proud to say, resulted in a discernible improvement in the sanitation of that area and a tremendous difference to the life of those people. This, along with our health education drive, managed to bring the rate of communicable diseases down so rapidly that I was shocked myself. 3 months on, the NGO was so impressed with the reduction in the cost of medication that we were bringing on that they agreed to my recommendation to parcel out some of the budget to start a training program for 15 to 18-year-olds in emergency medical care. Also, in one of the debriefing sessions with the social workers, I heard that the sanitation officer we had given the application to was being discharged from the hospital. I didn't even know he was sick. Out of curiosity, I asked what was wrong. Turns out, he had severe internal injuries and contusion of both kidneys in an unwitnessed accident 3 months back. I caught the eye of the social worker who had accompanied me to Miyaji's house. She gave a slight shake of the head and lightly touched her finger to her lips. All 6'4" of Rameez came by the next Eid with a package from Miyaji. In it was a big box of sweets for the team, a very polite letter in Hindi inquiring about our health and the success of the program. It also included an official letter from the corporation stating that a permanent structure would be built as a local clinic where we could hold our bi-weekly camp and the training program. I never asked further about the accident the sanitation officer had, or questioned the coincidence that it happened right after my conversation with Miyaji. I look at it this way. Whatever methods Miyaji used might not have been strictly ethical or lawful, but on the other hand, getting the water supply by bribing a sanitation officer was definitely unethical. As long as I hid behind a veil of willful ignorance, I could appease my conscience. The marked improvement of health of the numerous children, the training program offering the youngsters a skill they could use, the transformation of a local community to a much cleaner and a healthier one, was worth all the help that Miyaji had provided. While the ends may not always justify the means, on rare occasions we can tell ourselves that greater good has been served and that we are, at the end of the day, ethical people. Thank you.